Texas. It's Week 8 of the NFL on EA Sports. Texans taking on the Baltimore Ravans.
On a wonderful fall afternoon in the state of Texas, the roof is open and we've got football from NRG Stadium in Houston. The scene a few moments ago, here it is. It's unlike any other in sport as both teams made their way out of the tunnel. These folks are fired up as their guys are ready to do battle between the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans. With Charles Davis, as always, I'm Brandon Gaudin. And Charles, you talked about storylines in this one. I think it began. Both of these teams about to reach the halfway point of this NFL season, and we're underway on EA Sports. Taking it in at the 3. And he returns this to the 22. So out come the Texans for their opening drive. And we get a glance here at their leader, the man who will be calling the plays under center.
And this is a game for grit, determination, and somehow finding a way not to panic. What a horrible start for them. I mean, they haven't won a game yet. So now, as a quarterback, you're not just talking to your team. You've got to demonstrate to them what they need to do to win. He's got to be the leader by how he plays.
He's going to get up there.
And he'll get this up to the 34-yard line. A gain of 11 to kick off the drive. It's a quick first down.
Usually we see runs like this as the defense breaks down later in the game, but this guy sets the tone early. Takes the tackles and put the defense back on its heels.
Family.
From the 34 now, here's 1st and 10. And to give this time to the tailback. He'll get about 4 as he's past the 35 to the 38-yard line. Following the pickup of 4, here's 2nd and 6.
4 yards on the pickup. 2nd and 6.
Operating from the gun. David, he's got a first down and then some at midfield. And finally brought down right at the midfield stripe.
To win any route, you've got to break down the defender, and that's exactly what happened here on this really nicely executed curl route.
These tag teams have delivered consistent quality matches, something that the marquee main eventers could not always do. These days, it really is hard to believe that the WWE once had one of the best tag divisions in the world. A tag team that made their debut in the WWF in 1987 was Demolition. With their studded black leather outfits and their face paint, mixed with their intimidating size and aggressive style, they became a standout tag team in the World Wrestling Federation. And while yes, they were an answer to the extremely popular Road Warriors, Demolition managed to stand out on their own and become more than just Road Warrior wannabes. In this video, we will take a look at Demolition in the WWF.
No returning this one. It sails out of bounds, and they'll spot it right at
the Demolition that we all know was consisted of Bill Eadie as X and Barry Darsow as Slash. In the beginning, Randy Colley partnered with Eadie during the initial incarnation of the team. Colley was replaced by Barry Darsow after only a few matches as, according to Barry and Bill, Randy was too recognisable as one half of the Moondogs tag team, and WWF wanted
and that bye week coming right where they want it in the middle of the schedule. And he's going to drop this off to his fullback. And they're able to get this one across the 35. 16 yards right off the bat and a first down.
It's interesting because when I'm watching college football and I'm evaluating guys for the draft now, my list of fullbacks, pure fullbacks.
The demolition that we all know was consisted of Bill Eadie as X and Barry Darsow as Smash. In the beginning, Randy Colley partnered with Eadie during the initial incarnation of the team. Colley was replaced by Barry Darsow after only a few matches as, according to Barry and Bill, Randy was too recognisable as one half of the Moondogs tag team, and WWF wanted him to try a different gimmick. This is true, as you can hear from his chant Moondog as he entered the ring as Smash. Randy Colley would form a tag team known as the Shadows, but they were mainly used as enhancement guys, and Randy ended up leaving the company. So Bill Eadie is X and Barry Darsow is Smash. We have our Demolition tag team set in stone for now. Demolition, in their original incarnation, was introduced to the world by Johnny Valley, but the team ended up getting Mr. Fuji as their manager, who also wore some Demolition face paint as he stood at ringside for their matches. During their debut, Demolition dominated the tag division, gaining victories over the likes of the Rougeau brothers, the Young Stallions, the Killer Bees, and the Islanders. They were booked as aggressive, no-nonsense bad guys, and you just knew shit was going to go down with Demolition were their way to the ring. Their pay-per-view debut happened at Survivor Series 1987, where they were part of the 10-on-10 Survivor Series tag teams. Tito Santana and Rick Martel, better known together as Strikeforce, were the WWE Tag Team Champions leading into WrestleMania 4 in 1988. Two pretty boys who were booked as white baby faces. Demolition, who would be getting a shot at the tag titles at WrestleMania 4, were the polar opposite. Demolition wanted the flashy moves and looking good for the crowd. They were at WrestleMania 4 to dominate their opponents, and dominate their opponents they did. Demolition captured their first tag titles at WrestleMania 4. Demolition continued the year dominating more tag teams, defeating the likes of the Hart Foundation, the British Bulldogs, and also having more matches with Strikeforce. The Powers of Pain, consisting of the Barbarian and the Warlord, made their way to the WWF later in the year, making it clear they wanted to take away Demolition's tag titles. At Survivor Series 1988, Mr. Fuji double-crossed Demolition when he decided to manage the Powers of Pain, which in turn turned Demolition babyface. Demolition successfully defended their tag belts at WrestleMania 5 against the Powers of Pain, a match that also saw Mr. Fuji take the Demolition decapitation. This match is noteworthy as Demolition, on this day, became the longest reigning WWF Tag Champions, after breaking the 370-day reign held by the Valiant Brothers. On May 12th that year, Demolition passed the 409-day reign held by the Fabulous Kangaroos and the old WWF, making them the longest holders of any tag title in the history of the WWF and the WWF. In total, Demolition held the titles for 467 days, a record which wouldn't be broken until 2016, when the New Day held the later versions of the tag belts for 483 days. Demolition finally dropped the tag titles to the Brainbusters in a 2 out of 3 falls match on the July 20, 1989 edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. The November 4th edition of Superstars, taped on October 2nd, Demolition would defeat the Brainbusters to regain the titles and begin their second tag title reign. But a few months later, Andre the Giant and Haku, better known as the Colossal Connection, defeated Demolition to win the group. Demolition were now feuding with the Heenan family as they set their sights on winning back the tag titles. At WrestleMania 6, held at the Skydome in Toronto, Demolition did what they set out to do and won their belts back. This match is noteworthy too, as Andre didn't tag in for the whole duration of the match due to his worsening physical condition. Haku defended the tag belts on his own pretty much, and he didn't have much chance against X and Smash.
After 1-7-0.
Bill Eadie, who worked as X, was apparently suffering from his own health issues around this time. It's been reported that he developed an allergy to shellfish, which was quite serious. So serious that Bill himself said that it once caused his heart to completely stop. Worried what this could mean for one of his most successful tag teams, Vince McMahon decided to add another member to Demolition, thus giving Bill more limited time during in-ring competition. It's also been reported that Bill was going to take a backstage role within the company very soon, so it made sense to bring in someone else who could continue the Demolition tag team. Crush was brought in as the...
On third down, David. He's got the first down and more inside the 40. And he is going to have a Texans first down as they're able to get the third down conversion. Give them 17 on the pickup there, and the Texans also get a new
Here's Tony Brazil.
Truly, the commute time is the biggest thing for me. So I worked at least for 12 to 15 hours.
Here's Tony Brazil. I absolutely promise you, I am not somebody who revels in the thought of making an I told you so video. Even though this is about to be an I told you so video. I don't even really want to be making this, but I almost feel obligated to remind you what I said a little bit more than a week ago, and here we are. It has come true. My speculation was that the A's might be doing away with that traditional elephant patch that they've worn on their jerseys for decades now. That goes back to the late 80s when the Haas family brought back the elephant identity, but the elephant and its connection to the A's goes all the way back to Philadelphia in 1902. And I wasn't coming out of left field with this. I had some reasoning. This wasn't just speculation out of nowhere. It's because I saw the A's players on their visit to Sacramento in the first week of January, and look at the shoulders of the jerseys, the sleeves right there. No elephant patch. Now, these are pro stock level jerseys. These come from the factory with the patch already sewn on. So unless somebody took them off, or unless something happened, or in this case, they had other plans. In fact, they probably did the photo shoot with the new patch on it and then took it off. And that's why there's no patch on either sleeve and side of these jerseys. So what's the patch going to be? This. That's right, the A's are replacing the elephant, for as much as I can understand, with this Sacramento patch for at least 2025, maybe all 3 or 4 or forever years that they're in Sacramento. That's the Tower Bridge. That's the script name. Sacramento, there it is in green and gold from the team for the very first time. More on the patch in just a second. It's not just the patch, but on opening day, they're giving away this Sacramento-themed.
And his kick is right there. It's good. And they are on the board, but still trailing. It's 7-3. That's something of a pick-me-up, but the offense certainly has struggled, but they do get the field goal before half to put 3 on the board.
Yeah, you don't want to be shut out, but let's face it, those 3 points, that's not going to solve all their problems either.
And he'll be stopped up at the 25.
Facilities of sharing around with a
Baltimore set
lovely
to take
young
over here for their
people.
second possession of the game.
To forget about what
Last
it
drive
feels
so
like,
successful with the ground
instead,
game,
we have
ending in a
bounces.
touchdown. Do you stick with that formula?
Hi everybody, and welcome to Eel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing the top 10. Don't forget the top 10 Heenan family members. Now, if you're not familiar with the Heenan family, basically it is what Bobby the Brain Heenan called the people he managed through most of his career, whether that be in WWE or AWA or Georgia Championship Wrestling. So this is my look at what I consider the 10 best of that group. Now, I will say a lot of people say the Heenan family is a faction, kind of like they do with Jimmy Hart and the First Family. I don't think they are. I think it's a little bit different. The times were different. I don't think we actually seen wrestling factions until we got to the Four Horsemen. Maybe the Freebirds before that, but I kind of feel they weren't even a faction. They were more of a tag team with an extra person. I digress. That's a different story, a different argument for a different day. Let's jump right into this one. At number 10, the Masked Superstar, who Heenan managed in Georgia Championship Wrestling and won the Georgia Championship Wrestling Heavyweight Championship 4 times under Heenan's tutelage. Masked Superstar is one of those things that a lot of people don't really remember, don't remember how great he was, mostly because for the heavy majority of people that seen him, they seen him under a different gimmick, which is Acts of Demolition. But before that, he was a Masked Superstar, and he was one of the greats in Georgia Championship Wrestling, one of the guys in a very, very early Turner television to get on cable and become a star all across the United States while on there. Just a fantastic wrestler. That's why he's on my list. We're going from that our number 9. A team that faced the Masked Superstar as X later on, the Brainbusters. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. Now, Blanchard and Anderson, they were only in WWE, I believe, a little bit over a year. It may have been right at a year. But during that time, they really set the bar. Here we have 2 former 4 horsemen, 2 of the best wrestlers in the world, one of the greatest tag teams, in my opinion. When we talk about it purely in-ring, talent-wise, and we take away things like accolades, longevity, there's very few teams that can hold up to what the Brainbusters did. I mean, these were obviously 2 of the top 10 wrestlers in the world, any way you slice it, whether it be singles or tag. It was kind of unfair to have them in tag team divisions. It was basically the equivalent of saying today having Will Ospreay and AJ Styles form a tag team, and that tag team stay a team for like 3 years. The amount of accolades they would rack up would be impressive. This is a phenomenal team. I absolutely love them as the Brainbusters. I love them as the Horsemen. Just a great addition to the family. That's why they made my list. Well, from that, our number 8, Blackjack Lance. The first wrestler that he managed in more than one company. He managed them both in GCW, which, for the sake of this show, is Georgia Championship Wrestling, not Game Changer Wrestling, and the AWA. In the AWA, he won the Tag Team Championship with Bobby Duncan, who's another member of the Heenan family. Bobby Duncan Sr., you may mostly remember his son, Bobby Duncan Jr., if you're around my age. Blackjack Lanza is one of those guys that's kind of forgotten with time, much like the Masked Superstar gimmick. He did most of his work before there was a lot of videotape on him. He did a lot of his work in the 70s, and a lot of people think of him as part of the Blackjacks with Blackjack Mulligan, which, again, another fantastic team, one of the great teams and the storied teams of all time. But Lanza himself was a great wrestler, and didn't necessarily need to be tied to Blackjack Mulligan to have success. The guy that was so influential that I believe for 15, maybe 20 years he was an agent in WWE. I mean, that's a tough job, and one that's hard to keep. You can get it, but you stay there. Just a phenomenal talent. Another example of a great wrestler being put with a great manager to make the package even that much better. Well, from that, our number 7. A guy that I've heard didn't like to have Heenan as a manager because he didn't feel he needed a manager. And that's the ravishing one, Rick Rude. Rick Rude was under Heenan in WWE, WWF, which if you're my age, you would definitely know that. He was the Intercontinental Champion while under Heenan's tutelage, and he was a constant upper card wrestler, whether that be against the Ultimate Warrior, for both the World Championship and the IC Championship, or against Hulk Hogan. He's one of those guys that when people talk about people that didn't win a WWE Championship, they often bring him up as one of the guys that should have, him, Piper, Scott Hall, as guys that are right there near the top that were so talented and so deserving of it, but just didn't get that opportunity. A lot of the reason is he came up in the Hulk Hogan era and the Ultimate Warrior era. If he would have came 10 years later when they switched the belts more often, he may have had a run or two with it. Ultimately, he didn't, but he did have a ton of memorable moments, memorable feuds. We're going from now to number 6. The first guy I remember being referred to as an Olympian, Ken Patera. And I know there were wrestlers that were Olympians before him. I'm talking about when I was personally watching. Much like Blackjack Lanza, Ken Patera was managed by Heenan in 2 different companies, first in the AWA, and then in WWE. He was an international champion while in the AWA under Heenan's tutelage. And he's one of those guys that was a huge star and an impressive wrestler that really needed that extra salt and pepper that Bobby Heenan brought to the stage. Guys like Rick Rude didn't necessarily need the Heenan rub. to be a superstar. Rick Rude would have been at the same point in the card if he had no manager as he was with Heenan. It did make it better, of course, because Bobby Heenan makes everything better. Patera, on the other hand, Patera needed someone to convey how dangerous he was, how impressive he was, how technically skilled he was. Think of this, if you didn't see his career, which I know some of you didn't, think of this much like Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar. Brock by himself was great, probably would have reached the heights he did. You add Paul Heyman in to talk for him, and Brock Lesnar becomes one of the all-time greats. Similar trajectory with Ken Patera, with a similar skill set, if we're being honest. The thing that sticks out to Patera to me, and if you're of my age, you probably remember this. ESPN was a lot different channel back in the 1980s than it is now. It wasn't this polished pro sports all the time. They had some weird stuff. They had like strongman competitions and monster truck rallies and things that were different than just like baseball, football, hockey, soccer, or basketball. And then there are countless hours of guys arguing about those sports. Back in the 80s, they pretty much put any sport they could get their hands on. And one of those things that I just mentioned was strongman competition. And you would watch Patera. For me, I was watching him in the WWE. I didn't see his AEW run until after this. You would see Patera, and then you'd see an old video from 4 or 5 years before that where he competed in one of the old strongman competitions. It was just cool seeing that little moment. Wrestling fans today are kind of used to wrestlers being ubiquitous, being everywhere. Guys like The Rock and John Cena are on everything. But back in the 80s, seeing a wrestler do something different, whether it be in a movie or in a sporting event or showing up somewhere like Saturday Night Live, was really a cool thing for wrestling fans. And that was one of those cool, I know I just went off on a tangent, but you had to be there, I guess. It was a different time. It was just really cool seeing. Now going from Ken Patera, our number 5, Mr. Perfect. Heenan managed Perfect in WWE to 2 Intercontinental Championships. And the thing that kind of surprises me is Bobby Heenan was never tied to Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig's father, Larry the Axe Hennig, in the AWA in all the years he was there. It kind of felt like a no-brainer that he would have at some point managed Larry. However, he did manage his son, and he had a ton of success. Much like I said with Rick Rude, Curt Hennig, another one of those guys that's up there on the list of guys that should have won the WWE World Championship, but probably just was in the wrong era. And a guy like Curt Hennig today would be like Seth Rollins. He would get rewarded for his excellence. One of the great wrestlers of the late 80s, early 90s, a guy that absolutely lived up to his name, who was almost perfect in the ring, fantastic wrestler, that's why he's on my list. I've gone from that on number 4. This is a guy that Bobby Heenan kind of co-managed with Mr. Perfect, and that's the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Flair came into the WWE as a real world champion, holding the big gold belt, the NWA championship of the time, after a dispute with Jim Herd and WCW, and immediately latched himself on to Bobby the Brain Heenan, joined with Bobby Heenan, which again was kind of a no-brainer. Heenan and Flair went together like peanut butter and jelly. Heenan took what J.J. Dillon, who's a fantastic manager in his own right, took what J.J. had done with the Horsemen and added his Bobby Heenan flavor into it, and made Ric Flair, to people that may not have known him and may not have read different wrestling magazines or ever seen WCW or Jim Crockett promotions, the people that didn't know him, they knew he was special because he was with Bobby Heenan. Flair would go on to have 2 WWE championship runs during his time with Heenan. Much like the Brainbusters, this was a short run, but it was a great run. Probably one of the best times of Ric Flair's career as far as accomplishment-wise. The only thing that was missing from this run was that signature Hulk Hogan-Ric Flair match that we should have got. We should have got at WrestleMania. I think it was 7 or 8, whatever year that was. I think it was 7. Instead of Hogan versus Sid and Savage versus Flair, we should have got Hogan. And actually, it was 8, now that I think of it. But I digress. Ric Flair, one of the greats of all time, definitely deserves to be on the list. Well, from that, our number 3, the Crippler Ray Steve. Heenan managed the Crippler in the AWA to 4 tag team championships while under his tutelage. Largely considered by wrestling fans that were a generation ahead of me to be one of the great wrestlers of his generation. And a lot of people say to me, the greatest tag team they ever saw that are a little bit older than me would have been Bob Backlund and Stevens. From the little bits that I've seen of Ray Stevens and the tons that I've read and heard of him, he was just an amazing wrestler. I mean, there was nothing that this guy couldn't do. And yeah, it may be different, and yes, if you watch it now, he's not doing suicide dives or hooting piranhas. His style may look a little bit slower than what we're used to. But for the time, he was one of the most innovative wrestlers and one of the most imitated wrestlers. Guys like Ric Flair would copy things from Ray Stevens because Ray Stevens was just that good. One of the guys that really laid the foundation and the groundwork for what pro wrestling would become and how big it would become as a sport. Just an amazing wrestler. Definitely deserves to be in. Well, from that, our number 2, the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. He had obviously managed Andre during his WWF run. He managed him to a tag team championship with Haku, and with a big asterisk, he managed him to a world championship, which Andre immediately gave to the Ted DiBiase, which at the time, that win was nullified and the belt was put up for grabs. However, WWE, seemingly, depending on the story, this is either in their record books or out of their record books, and it goes back and forth. I never really counted it because when it happened, they didn't count it, so it's weird to see it being added to record books as a championship reign. That's why I said there's a big action. With that being said, Andre the Giant turning heel and joined with Bobby Heenan to try and end Hulkamania, that was the moment that took what Hogan and Piper had built with the MTV connection, with WrestleMania 1 and 2, with the whole rock and wrestling era. They took that, and it would be basically like having a little bit of a fire in a field and then dropping 5 gallons of gasoline on it. Because Andre the Giant created what has to be one of the biggest matches in the history of wrestling. A lot's been said about the attendance, whether it was a real number, a fake number, whatever it may be. The fact that we're here 35 years later talking about Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant still tells you how important that is. It tells you how high they set the bar. And yes, Andre was on the tail end of his career, and he wasn't anything near as mobile or impressive as he was 5 to 10 years earlier. Everything it meant, that feud, that rivalry, the last great run of one of the great talents in wrestling history, that's why he made it so high on the record. Now, before I get to my number 1 here, we do a thing here on my top 10s called the best of the rest. Basically, these were things that were considered for the list, but didn't quite make it. First up, Haku. We just talked about Andre the Giant winning a tag team championship. His partner, Haku. It felt like Haku was a mainstay in the Heenan family for several years, whether it be with the Islanders, the Colossal Connection, the King Haku run. He kind of felt like the Arn Anderson of the group, if we're going to compare it to a faction. Here again was a guy, much like I said with Patera, that needed a mouthpiece to talk to him, to talk for him, but didn't need anything when you put him in the ring, because anybody will tell you, Haku is one of the most dangerous men to ever compete in the sport. One of my favorites of the era, one of the guys I really look back and look fondly upon, Haku was just amazing, hence why he was considered for the win. Last but not least, on the best of the rest, the only guy on this entire list that didn't win a championship while under Heenan's tutelage, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, much like Andre the Giant, turned his back on Hulk Hogan to join up with Heenan, and the sheer fact that he's in here with all these legendary wrestlers that had multiple championship runs, highlight reel matches, and was considered over several other wrestlers that fit that bill as well, was the impact of Paul Orndorff's turn on Hulk Hogan. A lot of people look back and they look at the Andre turn, and they look at feuds with Hogan and Warrior, or Hogan and Savage, or Hogan and Piper as defining moments in the Hogan run, but I would argue that Paul Orndorff is right up there. Here you had a guy that was just as big as Hogan. You could argue had a better body than Hogan, looked better than Hogan. was faster than Hogan, was more dangerous than Hogan. He gave Hulk Hogan a different kind of foe, whereas Bundy was someone that was just bigger than Hogan, and Hogan could outsmart him and outquick him. Or Andre, same thing. Or Piper was based off of how much outside interference and dirty tactics he would use. Warwick was a guy that felt like he was on equal footing. That's why I was considered for the list, but didn't quite make. Before I do get to my number one, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you made it this far, I'm assuming you like this. Either that, or you hate everything I'm saying and you're waiting to see how stupid the number one is. But if you do, let's smash that like button. Give me a like for giving you however many minutes of entertainment this has been so far. With that being said, our number one Heenan family member, Nick Bach. Bobby Heenan managed Bockwinkel in the AWA. He managed him for 4 tag team championships with Ray Stevens, 4 world championships on his own, and also an AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship, which, if you're not familiar, that's the same belt that Jerry Lawler would wrestle for in the CWA/USWA. So that was their big belt. They had a loose relationship at times with the AWA, where the AWA champion would come in, or AWA Star Wars would come into the company. Bockwinkel being one of them. Nick Bockwinkel, to me, and I've said this about a couple people, is kind of forgotten with time. And what I mean by that is a lot of people may have heard the name or may have heard stories about him, but he's not talked about with the reverence of his contemporaries. Like, he's not brought up like Harley Race is, or Bruno Sammartino, or even Ric Flair. He's kind of thought of as the old school guy that won championships way back when, all the way to the late 80s. Everything that Harley Race was in the NWA, Nick Bockwinkel was in the AWA. Everything that Bruno Sammartino was for WWF at the time, Bockwinkel was for the AWA. He was their symbol of excellence. And whether you go look at the AWA as the 3rd biggest company in the country at the time, or the 2nd, or one of the 3 big companies, I would say you could argue NWA was the biggest of the Bockwinkel.
Got his man, it's caught. Touchdown, Houston. From 8 yards out, and the Texans cut into that lead. And this is up and good. That'll make it a score now of 24-10. So that a 7-play, 80-yard drive. And it results in the Texans finding the end zone.
This is where I talk about what I liked in my first box. If I hadn't already been using them since the beginning of the year, could you? So, of all players Unrivaled that were good, the one that I think I am not shocked about, but I'm like most happy about, is how well Kate Martin played for the Laces. Like, she looked real good. Like, I mean that on both ends of the floor. She's obviously a blue player. She's obviously somebody that can do a lot of things. She can do a lot of things well. Maybe not one thing spectacularly, but she does a lot of things well. But I was really
Give him 3 on the keeper there, and it is 2nd down. Jackson on the give to Dobbins.
Inox versus King Vegeta.
Behind the line of scrimmage. It'll be a loss of a full 3 yards there, and it also brings up 3rd down.
How about that, partner? That happened in a hurry. Sudden, explosive, gets into the backfield. It's a hit spot.
He was AFC Defensive Player of the Week last week.
We don't digress. We've already digressed. We're going to go all the way to the
Ravens on
you know what that is.
3 out of 5 thus far. This is 3rd and 10. From the gun, Jackson shakes off the sack. They'll wind up losing 11 on the play. And that'll bring up 4th down. The Ravens send their punter out now as the drive goes backwards, so he's on to punt it away. And he'll just punch it out of there, and it's not a great kick. 37 yards on the punt with no return. And the Texans with great field position to start this drive as they take over 1st and 10. Now comes the Houston offense as they get set to take over here. Their defense was able to force the punt. That's the good news. But this is still a 2-score game, and they need points on this drive and in a relatively quick manner.
One of those things that you gotta see.
On 1st and 10, David.
Trying to redirect, but there's 70,000
over the middle, complete. That's Terry. And he gets this inside the 35-yard line. They get 14 on that one. Good for a Houston first down. And he just gets rid of it. Throws it away. A wise move there. Looked like nobody open. Now 2nd down.
Plays like that, bumping on the field, 3 turnovers.
Throwing again on 2nd and 10. David. And this time he's got the hook up. It's complete. And they'll have it in the red zone before he crosses over out of bounds. It's a pickup of 17 and a first down.
Good yardage on the completion there. When they look at the scoreboard, they do understand a field goal is not going to do them any good. My guess, they're going to press the ball downfield as far as possible, try and throw it into the end zone and get a score because they know they've got to get that done and get the ball back as quickly as possible.
So the ball down to the 16 here for 1st and 10. From the red zone now, they'll look to throw.
After wildcard weekend, a lot of teams have been
to the goal line, but it's incomplete.
Yeah, that one's sailed on him. You've got to make sure you give your receiver a chance to come down inbounds because they are very gifted. They'll make the circus catches, but if they make them out of bounds, that does you no good.
And he comes back with one complete. And the Texans are going to be set up with a 1st and goal coming up as they get him down at the 6-yard line. 2nd catch for him today, and it'll wind up a first down. From the gun, David. This will be caught at about the 6. And a minuscule gain of maybe a yard from the 6 to the 5. A good rally to the football keeps him to only a yard, and it's 2nd down.
Be taken. At Verizon, anyone can trade in any phones in any condition, guaranteed, and get bigger picks and not to everyone in the family.
Texans.
Oh, Verizon.
Touchdown.
We love
and
it.
the Texans
There's so much
run it
space.
to
We have
within a
a
score.
Let me touch. You're slouching again, Ted. Expired. 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 So what else? Hope we can keep it clean. At least that will make bundling our common car insurance easy. Which helps us save a lot. Oh, Teddy, did you get my friend request? Oh, that's a check.
The kicker on 40.
Get more with Gaga.
And you go to the monitor, get an extra look. That's what the technology is for. And this touchdown. An extra point splits the uprights. And now things get a bit more interesting here in this fourth. This game back within a touchdown now as the kickoff's away.
Oh, really? What do you need?
They'll be taken about a yard deep. And his guys will get the football right at the 20-yard line.
When I was younger, my calling was to play football.
Baltimore about
But as I
ready to
grew
go
older,
on offense.
I
After the
realized
touchdown we just saw, we have a brand new
everyone's
ball
life
game.
isn't
And now
about
look
how
at the
many people you
situation.
can
You
knock
got
down.
plenty of time on the clock defensively.
It's
They
about
have
how many
3
people you can
timeouts. So
lift
do you
up.
run the football here or do you throw it?
I think you
That
have a
ran.
full
Our
conversation
call was
with your
a game-changing
and you
play.
tell them, here's the
So
situation.
you find your call.
They've got all of their timeouts,
Nothing
so
can
we
stop
are
you
not
from that.
going to play this conservatively. We've got to attack them. We've got to make them use those, gain the ground that we need.
NFC and AFC Championship games presented by Patriot TurboTax. Spin those live on your mobile device with NFL Plus.
So the 2-minute warning in play, so essentially 4 timeouts left.
They have to be aggressive here.
And this won't be enough to pick
Welcome
up
back
the
to the division
first.
of
A
playoffs.
gain of 2,
Presented by
3rd and
Intuit
1.
TurboTax. Here
And now
comes
right
the
out of the
number 1
2-minute
seed.
break.
15
With a timeout used defensively with a minute 56 to go.
The Devils here. Scott Wilkie, Dalvin Johnson, next goal, Curtis Ford, Dalvin Jones.
And he is going to have the first down. And that is going to suck the life right out of this crowd. And now we're going to get a timeout defensively. So another stop. 150 left in the football game. They'll run on first down. Dobbins. And I think this defense knew what was coming as he is smothered behind the line. The Texans going to signal for their third and final timeout as they'll talk things over prior to this upcoming second down play. On the option, Jackson will keep it. Call it no gain on the keeper, and it's going to bring up the third down. So here we go, Charles, third down. Any chance you're throwing?
I don't think so. I think you got to keep the clock rolling here.
And indeed, they will keep it on the ground. And it will be close to a first down as he runs into a wall right around the line of scrimmage. Call it no gain there, and it leads to a fourth down.
He's going to pick up a few. We're talking about that. Guess what? Joe Gibbs is in the house for the game, trying to lend some good vibes to the Commanders. So let me ask you this. Lions offense. There's plenty of time.
The Ravans send their punter out now as he's on here to punt it away. 46 on his first kick. This one in that neighborhood as well. So possession goes over here on the punt. And control of the football switching hands here with very little time remaining in this contest. Houston set to take over. Critical condition here, obviously. Got to hope to get something quick right and then maybe take that shot deep.
And once they do take the big shot, you've got to worry on defense. Of course, no one getting behind the defense and make it an easy throw. But nowadays, it's not just the ball being tipped in the air and people in the end zone in a cluster. It's that guy that's short of the end zone who comes up and ends up making the play because he goes unguarded. So there's a lot to think about if you're playing defense in this situation.
We'll see if they can cover all their bases. From the 21, it's 2nd and 10. Back to throw. He's going to let it fly. And that will be incomplete. 4 ticks left here on the clock. Now they face a 3rd and 10 after back-to-back incompletions. It got his man complete. And he is going to have the Texans first down as they're able to get the 3rd down conversion. And Charles, in this one, for the 4th quarter, became a lot more interesting, I know, than I anticipated. Probably